So the Chinese used the world market, the deal they struck with private capitalists, and the lessons they learned from the Soviet Union to organize what they call a special Chinese kind of socialism that allows for private enterprise a considerable amount, allows for market dealings a considerable amount, but controls from the top through the state-owned enterprises the leading or dominant sectors of the Chinese economy. The last part of the show for today is to give a little historical context. China is an old civilization and a quite homogeneous civilization. The Han people are the dominant ethnic group, and other ethnicities are small and scattered. The Chinese are a proud people with a long history of a pretty well-developed civilization, which at various times over the last couple of thousand years was much more developed than civilizations in the West were. So for them it was doubly embarrassing, humiliating is the word they used, to fall under the control of foreign colonialists in the 17th, 18th, 19th century, from Britain, from France, from Germany, from the United States. It culminated in a horrible moment of rebellion called the Boxer Rebellion at the end of the 19th century, when a futile effort by the Chinese authorities to push back against the Western imperialists was defeated. China was never made into a colony. They're very proud of that. But they had to give away Hong Kong and parts of their country to the foreigner who controlled them, who settled their merchants and other companies in these special territories where they didn't find themselves subject to Chinese authority or Chinese law. And the Chinese as a people made a commitment to find their own way, to break, led by Sun Yat-sen at the beginning of the 20th century. And when that wasn't sufficient, and when they were added the humiliation of the invasion of their country by the Japanese in the 1930s, a revolt of a much deeper sort took place in China. They were successful. At first, it was an alliance between the nationalists who wanted to build up a capitalist China and the communists who wanted to build up a socialist China, but they worked together to push the Japanese out. And by 1945, they had done so together with the fight of the United States and its allies against Japan. And as soon as World War II was over, the alliance between the capitalist/nationalist Chinese under their leader Chiang Kai-shek ended up in a civil war with the communists, their former allies, led by Mao Zedong. And a civil war broke out from 1945 to 1949, ending with the decisive and complete victory of the communist Red Army. The Chiang Kai-shek people left the mainland of China and went to Taiwan, where their descendants still live and still imagine that they, on the little island, are China, whereas the vast mass of people on the mainland are something else. No one hardly is left in the world who shares this delusion. From 1949 to now, 70 years, historically not a long time, but from a decimated, poor, colonialized country is now the #2 economy in the world. It is an incredible achievement, and not to understand that, not to understand what this means in the minds, in the feelings, and in the pocketbooks of the Chinese people, not to understand that it has involved moving 400 to 500 million people off of the poverty-stricken countryside into the urban industrial jobs along the coast of China. These are misunderstandings that make no sense. You are not helped in understanding, let alone fixing the problems of the world, by living in the delusion that the things I've tried to get across today are not the case, don't have to be taken into account, and somehow don't matter. Unfortunately, in the mainstream media of the United States and in other parts of the West, most of this is simply not reported on, not covered, evaded. That doesn't do anyone a service unless it's the people who run the kinds of society China isn't, who are afraid of the model and the example China offers. For my part, it is our effort here at Economic Update to provide the kind of information on the basis of which rational decisions can be made about making the world a better place. I hope you have found these in-depth analyses of the Soviet Union and China a useful part of the ongoing debate about capitalism and its alternatives, the number one of which is varieties of socialism. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to speaking with you again next week.